Imagine a family so wealthy that they don't just live in a country, they are the country. The country is literally named after them. Saudi Arabia, the House of Saud. A single family that controls an estimated $2 trillion in assets. That's not a typo. 2 trillion. To put that in perspective, the Walton family, Walmart, is worth about $260 billion. The Mars family, M&M, Snickers, around $160 billion. The Coke family, about $130 billion. Add them all up, every single one, and you still don't come close to the House of Saud. But here's what makes this story different from every other rich family video you've ever watched. The Rothschilds built banks. The Rockefellers built oil companies. The Sauds? They built an entire nation from scratch, and they did it with a sword in one hand and a handshake in the other. This is the story of how a broke, exiled desert warrior fought his way back to power, struck the most important business deal of the 20th century, and turned a kingdom of sand into the gas station of the entire world. And trust me, this story is wilder than anything Hollywood could ever write. Let's go back to 1891. And let's go to one of the most unforgiving places on Earth, the Arabian Peninsula. Now, if you're picturing the Saudi Arabia of today, the skyscrapers, the luxury cars, the private jets, erase all of that from your mind. In 1891, this was nothing, literally nothing, just endless desert, scattered tribes, and a brutal fight for survival. There was no oil, no money, no global importance. The great powers of the world, Britain, France, the Ottoman Empire, they looked at this land and saw sand. But one family saw something else. The Al Saud family had actually controlled parts of this peninsula on and off for over 150 years. They'd built a small kingdom, lost it, built another one, lost that too. By 1891, they'd lost everything again. A rival clan, the Al Rashid family, had kicked the Sauds out of their home city of Riyadh, and so a young boy named Abdulaziz ibn Abdulrahman Al Saud was forced to flee into the desert with his father and family. He was just 15 years old. They ended up in Kuwait, broke, homeless, living off the charity of the Kuwaiti ruler. And for most families, that would have been the end of the story, another forgotten dynasty buried under the sand. But Abdulaziz, he wasn't most people. Contemporary accounts describe him as physically massive, well over 6 feet tall in an era when the average man was 5'5". He was charismatic, he was fearless, and most importantly, he was patient. For nearly a decade, he waited in Kuwait, watching, planning, burning with one single obsession: taking back Riyadh. 1902. Abdulaziz was now 26 years old, and he was done waiting. He gathered a group of just 40 men. 40, that's it. Not an army, not even close. 40 guys on camels, riding through the freezing desert night toward the most fortified city in the region, Riyadh. Now, think about this for a second. This would be like you deciding to take over a city with 40 of your friends. It sounds insane, and honestly, it was. But Abdulaziz had a plan. Under the cover of darkness, he and a handful of his men climbed over the walls of the Masmak fortress, the seat of power in Riyadh. They hid, they waited for dawn, and when the governor of the city, a man appointed by the rival Rashid family, stepped out of the fortress gates, Abdulaziz and his men attacked. The battle was short, it was brutal, and when it was over, the governor was dead, and Abdulaziz ibn Saud stood in the middle of the fortress, victorious. He was 26 years old. He had just conquered a city with 40 men, and he wasn't even close to done. Over the next 3 decades, from 1902 to 1932, Abdulaziz did something that military historians still study today. He systematically conquered tribe after tribe, city after city, region after region across the Arabian Peninsula. He didn't just use military force. That's what makes him different from a typical conqueror. He used marriages. Lots of marriages. Historical records suggest he married over 20 wives throughout his lifetime. each one a strategic alliance with a different tribe. He married the daughters of tribal leaders. He married the widows of defeated enemies. Every marriage was a peace treaty. Every wedding was a merger. Sound familiar? It should. It's the exact same playbook that corporations use today. Mergers and acquisitions, hostile takeovers, strategic partnerships. Abdulaziz wasn't just building a kingdom, he was building a corporation. And the product was an entire country. On September 23, 1932, he unified the entire peninsula under one name, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, named after his family, the House of Saud. But here's the thing, at this point, Saudi Arabia was still basically broke. It was a massive country with almost no economy. The main income? Pilgrims visiting Mecca and Medina for the Hajj. The kingdom was surviving, but barely. And then, everything changed. American geologists from a company called SoCal, Standard Oil of California, had been drilling in Saudi Arabia's eastern province for years. They'd found nothing. The company was about to give up, pack up, go home. And then, on March 3, 1938, well number 7, also known as Prosperity Well, struck oil. Not just a little oil, the largest petroleum reserves ever discovered in the history of the planet. Let me say that again so it sinks in. The largest petroleum reserves ever discovered in human history. Saudi Arabia was sitting on an ocean of oil, an estimated 267 billion barrels. To put that in context, that's roughly 17% of all proven oil reserves on Earth, and it all belonged to one family. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting and where Americans need to pay attention, because what happened next shaped your life, your gas prices, your foreign policy, your wars. In 1945, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, fresh off winning World War II, made a secret detour on his way home from the Yalta Conference with Churchill and Stalin. He met King Abdulaziz on a warship, the USS Quincy in the Suez Canal, and they made a deal. The terms were simple, but world-changing. Saudi Arabia would provide the U.S. with a stable, reliable supply of oil. The U.S. would provide Saudi Arabia with military protection, indefinitely. That's it. Oil for security, security for oil. This single handshake, this one meeting on a warship in 1945, created the foundation for the entire modern global economy. Every time you fill up your car, every time you hear about gas prices going up or down, every time you wonder why the US has military bases in the Middle East, it all traces back to this moment. The oil operation was eventually restructured into a company called Aramco, the Arabian American Oil Company. At first, American companies owned most of it, but slowly, strategically, the Saudi government bought more and more shares. By 1980, Saudi Aramco owned 100% of Aramco, and today, Saudi Aramco is the most profitable company on Earth. Not one of the most profitable, the most profitable. In 2022, Aramco made $161 billion in net income. Apple made $99 billion that same year. Let that sink in. So how rich is the House of Saud, like actually? Well, this is where things get complicated, because unlike American billionaires, whose net worth you can roughly track through stock holdings and public filings, the Saudi royal family's wealth is almost impossible to calculate precisely. Here's what we do know. The Saudi royal family has an estimated 15,000 members. Yeah, 15,000. Remember all those strategic marriages? Abdulaziz alone had at least 45 sons and an unknown number of daughters. Those sons had sons. Those sons had sons, and so on. Of those 15,000 members, about 2,000 hold the real wealth and power. The family's combined wealth is estimated between $1.4 trillion and $2 trillion. To visualize this, the entire GDP of Mexico, a country with 130 million people, is about $1.3 trillion. One family has more wealth than an entire nation of 130 million people. But it's not just about the money in the bank, it's about what they own. Saudi Aramco, valued at roughly $2 trillion at its peak, is majority owned by the Saudi government, which is the royal family. The Public Investment Fund, Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, holds over $930 billion in assets. They own chunks of Uber, Facebook, Boeing, Citigroup, Disney, Activision Blizzard, and hundreds of other companies. If you've played a video game, used an app, watched a movie, or flown on a plane recently, there's a good chance the House of Saud made money from it. Then there's the spending. King Salman's personal yacht cost $80 million. The royal family owns an estimated $5 billion in real estate worldwide. When the Saudi royal family travels, they've been known to book entire five-star hotels, not floors, hotels. And here's the wildest detail. In 2017, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, reportedly purchased a French chateau for $300 million. At the time, it was the most expensive home ever sold on Earth. But even all of this is just what's visible. The true depth of the family's wealth is hidden in layers of trusts, holding companies, and sovereign funds that no outsider has ever fully mapped. And now, let's talk about the part of this story that most people don't want to touch, because with this level of wealth and power comes an equally massive shadow. Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy. There is no Congress, no parliament, no elections, no separation of church and state. The king's word is, quite literally, the law. The royal family doesn't just run the government, they are the government. The Minister of Defense, a prince. The Governor of Riyadh, a prince. The Foreign Minister, until recently, always a prince. And dissent, it's not tolerated. In 2018, journalist Jamal Khashoggi, a Washington Post columnist and legal U.S. resident, walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. He never walked out. U.S. intelligence concluded that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman personally approved the operation that killed Khashoggi. The reaction from the U.S. government? Basically nothing. And that tells you everything you need to know about the deal made on that warship in 1945. Oil for protection, protection for oil, no matter what. Freedom House, the democracy watchdog, rates Saudi Arabia 7 out of 100 for freedom. For context, North Korea scores 3, the United States scores 83. Women couldn't drive in Saudi Arabia until 2018. 2018! That's not ancient history, that was during the Trump administration. The message was clear. Reforms happen when the royal family decides they happen, not because the people demand them. And then there's the Ritz-Carlton incident. In November 2017, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, ordered the detention of hundreds of Saudi Arabia's wealthiest businessmen, princes, and officials inside the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh. Officially, it was an anti-corruption crackdown. Unofficially, many observers called it a power consolidation and a shakedown. Reports suggest that detained individuals were pressured to hand over assets totaling over $100 billion in exchange for their freedom. Imagine being locked in a luxury hotel and told you can leave when you write a check for a few $billion. That's not anti-corruption, that's a hostage takeover. But here's the thing that makes this story so fascinating right now, in 2024 and 2025. The House of Saud knows the oil is running out. Maybe not today, but eventually. And when the oil runs out, what's left? This is the existential crisis driving everything Saudi Arabia is doing right now, and one man is at the center of it all. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS. He's 39 years old, and he has a plan called Vision 2030. The idea is simple to state, but almost impossibly ambitious to execute. Transform Saudi Arabia from an oil-dependent kingdom into a modern, diversified global economy before the oil runs out. How? Tourism. They're building mega resorts, theme parks, and entertainment cities. They hosted WWE events, Formula One races, and boxing matches. They even started a professional golf league, LIV Golf, that poached some of the biggest names in the sports. They spent over $1 billion buying international soccer stars like Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, and Karim Benzema to play in the Saudi Pro League. Tech. The Public Investment Fund has invested billions in Silicon Valley companies, AI ventures, and gaming companies. Entertainment. For decades, cinemas were banned in Saudi Arabia. Now they're building massive multiplex theaters and hosting international concerts. They're not just trying to survive the end of oil, they're trying to reinvent what a country can be. So let's go back to where we started. 1902. A 26-year-old exile climbed over a fortress wall with 40 men and took back a city. In 2025, his grandson controls a $2 trillion empire, reshapes global sports, invests in Silicon Valley, and is trying to build a 170-kilometer city in the desert. The House of Saud went from homeless refugees in Kuwait to arguably the wealthiest family in human history in just 4 generations. But here's the question nobody can answer yet. Can they survive what's coming? Because the oil will run out. The world is shifting to renewables, and a family whose entire power is built on a single resource has to completely reinvent itself while holding together a country of 36 million people, managing 15,000 royal family members, and navigating a world that's increasingly uncomfortable with how they operate. The Rockefellers had Standard Oil. It was broken up. The British had their empire. It collapsed. Every great dynasty in history has faced a moment where the thing that made them powerful stopped working. For the House of Saud, that moment is approaching. The only question is whether they'll be the first dynasty in history to see it coming and actually survive it. If you made it this far, you clearly enjoy stories about power and money. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot more stories like this coming, and trust me, they only get crazier from here.